Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Pro Trade Room Plus and US retail sales. And I want to say hello to everybody watching us on YouTube this morning. This is our stream of the week. My name is Lee Goldstein. I'm the trading director for 10-Minute Trades. Please remember that all the trades we discuss are for educational purposes. I'm not a financial advisor. It is possible to lose money trading futures, so trade carefully, please. Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you see me the charts? And I assume you can all hear me okay? Anybody out there? Can you hear me? Tommy, can you hear me? Okay. All right. So there's a medium amount of news. You've got a little bit of trade balance type news, import price and export prices, along with retail sales. And they're expecting retail sales to be very similar to the way they were last month, up, not down. So we'll see what the consumer is up to. Somehow it seems like the consumer is able to keep retail sales going. So I'm watching the ES on the right and looking to trade gold on the left. So there's been things going on with this report. There's some things that make this report tricky. And what can be tricky about it is that sometimes it trades by itself and other times it trades with PPI and or CPI, but most commonly PPI. In the past, we've been separating the way we trade it based on whether it's with CPI or PPI. But what we're noticing is the move has been getting larger and larger with gold. And the way that we know that is when we look at the spike sheet. When we look at the sheet, that helps us determine what we should do for the trap trade, because this is generally a trap trade setup. Now, if you notice, we went through a period where it looked like everything was getting smaller, but the last 3 out of 4 reports have been fairly big. Now, usually what we like to see are bigger reversals than the spikes. Like you look at 815, that probably wouldn't have been a fill, but it was a much bigger reversal than the spike. November, bigger reversal than a spike. At a minimum, though, you want to see a good sized reversal. But the real issue is the breakouts on gold have not been very reliable because they're liquidity challenged and there's a lot of chop in the breakouts. So we have been doing this as a trap trade for a long time, this particular report. What we are seeing, without a doubt, over the past 4 months is an increase in the size. So we're going with a more conservative setup, bigger tiers. Because let's be honest, you'd rather not get filled than have a bad trade. It's really not complicated, right? You'd rather not get filled than have a bad trade. So hang on a second. Bear with me, folks. I'm having some sort of weird problem with a window. Okay. So let me show you the DMM. So we're looking at tiers of 40 and 55 with a stop of 25. 40 and 55 with a stop of 25. If it gives me a quick profit, I'll probably take it. If I get a quick profit, I would probably take it. I've also been testing an ES breakout, and it struggles also with some chop, but it looks decent as a breakout. So you might want to consider MES on an ES breakout for this setup with a bigger stop. You know, you could go with a 25 stop with the MES. But the trap trade on retail is 40 and 55. That's what I would use, 40 and 55. Now, one way you can reduce risk, and there's extra, I feel like there's extra risk on this report because the report seems to be changing a little bit. One way you could reduce your risk is you could just trade the outer tier if you want to. And that way, you know, if you get a big move, then you get a fill. If it's not a very big move, then you don't get a fill, and no harm done. You just go on to the next event. So remember, it's always okay not to get a fill and to go on to the next event. It's never a problem. So the setup that I'm interested in, I'm going to label the trade gold. Position 1 is a 1. Position size 2 is a 1. The stop at 25. Tier 1 is a 40. Tier 2 is a 55. Count warnings are turned off. The time of the event for everyone out there is 8:30, and the preparation seconds is 5. Okay, I'm testing a different version of the software, so just my time is different than yours. So we've got tiers 40 and 55 with a stop of 25, and we've got prep of 5 seconds, and the time of the event is 8:30. So that's the setup I'm going to use. Like I said, if I get if it fills and gives me a quick profit, I'll probably take it. Now remember, with the trap trade, you want to make sure that your chart is wide enough to show all the buttons. When you enable a trap trade, you should see at the top of the chart a break even button, close the trade button, adjust button, which we don't use, cancel the outer tier, and a combine button. If your charts are too narrow, you won't see all the buttons. Okay, so make sure your charts are wide enough to see that. Now on ES, I'm just testing the breakout. The breakout would be at 8:29:59. The bracket is 8. Position size 1 is a 1, size 2 is a 1. And then my targets are 7 and 15. With a stop of 15. If my first target were to get hit, I would use target 1 stop move to bring my stop to break even -2. Account warnings are off. I'm labeling it ES. And actually, I don't need a template. I've already saved one. I'm going to check the bracket width, right, by setting the time to 0. When you enable a trade with 0 time, you get your brackets to show up on the chart once price calculates. So I can now put my time back to 8:29. Okay, so that trade, that breakout trade is ready to go. We're going to check our time sync. So Roz, think about it, right? If you do the inner tier, then your stop is smaller. So the whole idea with the trap trade is you want to have the most safety. So you have to use the outer tier or you're leaving yourself unsafe, because all the testing we do is based on creating the zone of safety. The zone of safety, which means if there's a spike on the news, how big does the spike have to be so that you don't get stopped out on the spike? So it's got to be the outer tier plus the stop is the correct zone of safety. That's what we test for. The inner tier, that value can be more variable because that's not your zone of safety. It's the outer tier plus the stop that determines how big of a spike keeps you safe. Okay? That's why it's the outer tier. You can trade just the inner tier, but you're definitely leaving yourself in a higher risk position. Let's check our time sync. By going to the website time is. So I've got to say, in Philadelphia, I've been in a state of mourning for, this is the second day of crying in a corner over the Eagles. The whole city is, I mean, depressed like you would not believe. You can feel it when you walk around and go places. People are so depressed. People are so serious about the Eagles around here. Philly, the suburbs, people take it so seriously. I know I do. Let's check. Let me show you a couple of things. So for some reason, I don't have December's video. It was not a big winner, but it was not a loser, certainly. This is November. Gold trap trade on the left. Now our tiers were a little bit smaller previously. We're definitely going with a a larger bracket, because like I said, we'd rather not get filled than have a very big move that stops you out. There's always another trade, always another trade. Now, the ES trap trade, we have looked at an ES trap trade, and it's been somewhat inconsistent. It happened to work pretty nicely in November. And our gold trap trade did not fill. It didn't fill. And sometimes that'll happen. I mean, that's the reality of trap trades. I mean, the truth is, Frank, they played some of the worst football anyone's ever seen over the last 7 weeks of the season. They lost 6 out of their last 7 games. It was horrifying. It was absolutely horrible. They were 10-1. It was incredible. It's the biggest collapse in Philadelphia sports history in ever. And if the coach doesn't get fired, it's unbelievable. It was almost as bad as Dallas collapse. The Dallas collapse was probably worse. But Dallas always collapses. They haven't won anything in 20 years, I think. There's an AI video of Jerry Jones crying. It's sad but hilarious. Okay, so let's take a look at October. Now, October, there was a tremendous amount of news that morning. I think we had the ECB that morning, the ECB rate decision. There was all sorts of news. In October, you could see the price shot down. It did a quick reversal. So it drops down, does a quick reversal. Ten seconds away. You could see it shot down, almost stopped, and did a quick reverse. Probably if I see something like that happen, I might take a quick profit if something like that happens. And then looking at September, sometimes my videos don't let me get super exactly right on time. I just have to wait for this one to show it to you. For the MGC trap, I might add 5 ticks to the stop, Roz. 5 or 10 ticks to the stop, actually. I think the tiers are pretty big, Roz, that I would be comfortable with the tiers the way they are. But you can certainly get away with a bigger stop. So Caesar, I would probably, the biggest issue with the breakouts on this report has been sometimes it really looks like there's liquidity issues, big chops, whipping around on the spike. That's the big issue with the breakouts on this particular report. But the ES, it tested pretty well as a breakout. It tested pretty well as a breakout. There were a couple of months that looked that you can't tell 100% in sim where your fills would be. So one more time on the gold trap trade setup. We're using tiers of 40 and 55. The time of the event is 8:30. Prep seconds are 5. And position size 1 is a 1, size 2 is a 1, and the stop is 25 ticks. And then the ES setup on a breakout, and I'm just testing the ES. You've got 829. You could trade MES. I think that's not an unreasonable approach. 829.59 on the trigger time, a bracket of 8, targets of 7 and 15, stop of 15. If I traded the MES, I'd probably use a stop of 25. Targets anywhere between 7 and 25. The keys are the bracket of 8. Gold is opening right now. That's why you're seeing movement in gold. Bracket of 8. Entry time of 829.59. Stop is 15 that I'm testing on the ES. I'll show you a little bit of my ES testing here. Let me see. Let me see if I have it. Here we go. Okay, so this was ES coming up on the left side in December. ES left side in December. Here we go. So it was a little bit choppy on the fill, and then it followed through. November had a nice solid move. Quick reversal, but a nice solid move. And I was testing December again, because December was challenging to tell what would have happened. December, you get a fill, a quick reversal. I think that December would have been a stop. You need maybe bigger than a 15-tick stop. And that's one of the issues also with the ES. You need a pretty darn big stop to survive it. That's why I might go with the MES on this to see, and let's test the ES and see how it does. There are no margin issues on this. Seems like there's only about 4 or 5 margin trades, jobs, PPI, CPI, FOMC statement, and they say they're going to do some earnings. So we'll see what happens with earnings. They'll probably do Apple earnings on the NQ only, just to torture us. And I also tested larger tiers with the trap trade. November just filled, looks like it just fills initially one tier. And then it has a mediocre mediocre reversal. So when I say I might take a quick profit, I might just hit a close button on this trade, which I don't normally do. Then actually November looked better. It did actually reverse. And then I tested October with bigger settings. Or let's see, this was December. It fills and doesn't have a great reversal. Right about there, you have a small reversal. It took its time. It took its time. That was 3 minutes, over 3 minutes. So about 5 seconds before the news comes out, our orders will show up on the chart. Okay, so I do want to thank folks for watching us on YouTube. If you hit the like button, that would be nice. I don't know of any prop firms that don't allow, that pick trades that you can or cannot trade on. The issue with prop companies is some of them don't allow news trading at all. So on that YouTube question, prop firms, at least to my knowledge, don't pick and choose trades that you're allowed to trade. They either have a policy of you can trade news or you can't. For instance, we have checked with Top Step these days and they let you trade news. And Apex, they're not recommended for news. And the prop firms are always changing their rules, it seems, also. All right, so we've got about 1.5 minutes to go. So our tiers, 40 and 55, 40 and 55 on gold. And then testing an ES breakout on the right. All right, 30 seconds. So remember, about approximately 5 seconds before the news, our orders will show up on the chart. I think retail sales will be good. I think the consumer somehow is always spending. I don't know how they do it. Well, they just keep borrowing money and putting money on their credit cards. Dave Ramsey would have a heart attack, right? An absolute heart attack. Okay, no matter what, I can't lose money on this trap trade. I'm going to try and trail. Okay, so I trailed a little too close, grabbed $150. This trade scares me. I don't mind telling you, being honest, this trade scares me. You're right at the low of the day. There's such a danger of pulling into that low and ruining the trade. Okay, there's a big danger. I grabbed 150 bucks. I trailed tight on, I mean, I'm not going to say I trailed tight on purpose, but I trailed a little bit too tight. I'm not sorry, because I think if you have a small profit on your trap, get your stop to safety. Get your stop to safety. That's what I recommend. Let's look and see what happened on the ES. That trade, really, it's a scary trade today. My body is shaking. I did not want, my worry on retail is exploding spikes because it's been getting bigger and bigger. So we were very smart to increase our tiers. It really helped. Now, when you look at the sales, retail sales were good. 4% instead of 2%, 0.2, 0.4. Very good increase. Now, look, there's the profit. You know, you could say we jumped too soon, but the worry is the low of the day. The low of the day. On good news, which tends to push gold down, and it pushed down on the news. That's what happened. I was concerned about that low of the day being a little bit too much of a magnet, and I really just trailed too tight. And we'll look at the video. We'll look at the video. All right, let me see what everyone's saying. So MGC did not work. Did it not work, Roz, or was it the way that you traded it? Because you had to be very patient, or not very, but at least somewhat patient. It looks like the ES whipped. I didn't watch the ES, so I'm going to turn off my ES. Let's watch the video. Definitely left some money on the reversal table. It reversed, but you could see the reversal is not taking full form yet. Maybe it will, but it's also, we're 3.5 minutes outside of the trade. Sometimes MGC is very different than GC also. They don't always behave the same. So Fred, it worked for you. Okay, so Fred, you used an outer tier of 57 and it worked for you. Okay. So definitely out early on retail. For me, I just trailed too tight. I mean, I wanted to make a little bit rather than nothing, and that's why I trailed a little too tight. Probably an ES error, Roz. I'm guessing it was a fast move. Let's look at the video. Let's take a look at the video. All right, so we got retail. Okay, so folks, I want to thank everybody on YouTube. If you'd hit the like button and hit the notification bell so you know the next time we're streaming. Thanks for watching. This was our free stream of the week, and we'll be streaming again next week. So Chantal, you can close that. And thanks everybody. on YouTube for watching our free stream of the week, and we'll see you next week. So thanks.